Hello, all. Thank you for joining the Human Libraries of Procurement podcast. We call this Human Libraries of Procurement for three basic elements: the human connect, the libraries part, which shows knowledge and wisdom, and procurement because we talk about procurement. Today, we are joined with Martin John, who is a procurement professional as well as a negotiation expert. Martin, thank you for doing this. How are you doing today?
It's great to be here, Super Tim. Thanks very much for having me on this wonderful show of yours. And I'm doing really, really well as I wind down for the Christmas holidays.
Yes, thank you for doing this before the holidays.
My pleasure.
Martin, we'll start with your career journey and then we'll take it from there.
All
Yeah.
right, this is really boring for everybody. Okay, I joined Toyota Motor Manufacturing in the UK when I came out of university on a graduate scheme. And on the first day, they said, "Right, Martin, you're going to go to purchasing," as it was
Sure.
called. Okay, I had no idea what purchasing or procurement was at that stage, but as soon as I got into it, I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. I was given a bunch of suppliers of really complicated, complex components, right? You can imagine. Okay,
Right.
so I had things like door hinges. I had things like the toolkit and another couple of like basic metal parts to begin with. But that's where I learned so much. And Toyota was the most fantastic training ground for
Right.
not just learning about procurement, but learning about, the advantages of having sustainable, trust-based relationships with your suppliers. So that was fantastic. So at 4 years at Toyota, it was very regimented, so very process driven.
Right.
So there wasn't a great deal of latitude for individual thought and innovation and creativity. From Toyota after 4 years and joined a company that no one will have heard of called Rexam. Now,
Right.
Rexam makes beverage cans like Coke and Red Bull. And at one point, they made all the Red Bull cans in the world, billions and billions of them. So I had 7 wonderful years there doing various direct material roles and then finishing on indirects with CapEx and energy. After that, I had a brief spell in food in a domestic UK food company. And then finally, I spent the bulk of my career in a wonderful company, British American Tobacco. Don't judge me for working in tobacco and nicotine. I have a mortgage to pay. And I had probably 7 or 8 roles within those 13 years at BAT, British American Tobacco, ranging from global sourcing manager for packaging. And then I did global category manager for a couple of categories, so CapEx again, and energy and a few others, and various other roles. And I finished off working in the research and development department as a commercial manager, where my role was basically to help all these brainy scientific boffins, who some of whom had 2 PhDs, right? Can you
Right.
imagine? I had to help them understand how to get the most out of their budget and give them some idea of like basic commercials when they're dealing with a supplier. Like perhaps it's not always such a good idea to tell a supplier what your budget is, okay? Things
Right.
things like that. I worked a bit in supply chain as well in BAT. I was head of material supply management. I've done head of indirects for one of the biggest big regions. So a whole load of roles. And then after that 13 years, I was able to leave the company on good terms and I took redundancy. And that's when I started my own training business. And so I teach procurement skills, but I specialize in procurement, but also negotiation and ethical persuasion. And I love teach. This is what I was meant to be doing, right? So this role now, working for myself, gives me so much joy, so much love. I have so much passion for it, and I've met some wonderful people around the world from doing what I do now.
So lots of good experience there, Martin. Thank you for sharing. Well
My
done.
pleasure.
I'll add something from which I find out. It is pretty interesting that Martin is one of the only 45 trainers in the world who have been taught by the godfather of influence, Dr. Robert Cialdini, and the only Cialdini trainer who specializes in influence for procurement. So that's a big deal. Also, Martin has spent like 25 years in procurement, and 80,000 people have taken his course in procurement negotiation on LinkedIn Learning. And also Udemy, I'm doing a negotiation course on Udemy, thanks to Martin. So Martin, start with and where all do you do training?
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. So the LinkedIn Learning, by the way, so I have 5 courses on LinkedIn Learning. So
Hmm.
they're not negotiations on Udemy, which you've taken. Thank you very much for that.
Right.
But the 5 courses on LinkedIn Learning. So I have two on cost reduction.
Hmm.
Okay, so one is on cost reduction demand side, the other is cost reduction supply side. I have another one which is mastering supplier relationship management. Okay, which is really good.
Right.
Then the fourth one is about ESG and specifically how to decarbonize your supply base.
That's
And
very
then
nice.
lastly, I have my most popular one is strategic sourcing. So
Right.
combined, 80,000 learners have taken those 5 courses. But my live training, so I do a combination of face-to-face
Hmm.
and also live online. And I think 40% is face-to-face. I worked out the other day. So 60% is live online. So I'm training all kinds of companies. So big companies in the automotive sector, in packaging, in clinical research, in oil and gas, in brewing. So it's been
Right.
a real interesting mix of clients. And
Right.
I do face to face, not just in the UK. In fact, I was over in the US in the summer and did some training over there. And then I obviously online you can reach anybody. So my most interesting client this year has been a company in the marine lubrication sector,
Wow.
and their delegates, so they were based in Singapore, but their delegates spanned 12 time zones on one call. Can you imagine?
Right.
So we had people in Hong Kong on one side, and then we had someone on the same call in Venezuela.
Right.
So it's extraordinary, and I love it. I love it. So procurement, negotiation, and then ethical persuasion. That's what I do.
Right. You're on. Right. But we'll start with procurement because we love to talk about procurement. So you already covered a bit of procurement when you were introducing yourself. But tell us more as to what were the categories and, any success stories or any stories.
Yeah. Okay. Any success stories? Yes. Any failures? Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Right.
categories. So let's think. So automotive. So I bought things like the windshield. I bought things like the pressed panels. Is a story for you. When I joined Toyota, I was getting my first passport, and I thought, my goodness, I'm joining this global automotive giant. I'll be traveling all over the world.
Right.
And then I was given my group of suppliers. They were supplying like press panels and door hinges. And they
Right.
were all like pretty close by because that's some big, heavy, bulky stuff. So I
Yeah.
didn't need to get my passport out for the first few years. And then at Wrexham, I was buying steel for the cans. Some of the cans are still made in steel in parts of the world. It's
Right.
mainly aluminium, but steel was one. But I bought all the coatings to make the decoration on the outside of the can. So ask you a question. So Coca-Cola was one of our customers. How many different types of Coca-Cola Red do you think they had in Europe?
I can only differentiate one. For me, red
One.
is
You
the
think
only color.
one.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
One is a logical answer. One is a
Right.
logical answer, and it would be the most efficient answer, given that if you only have one color, then it's only one changeover, and you can run all day.
Right.
I had 23.
Wow.
23 different types of Coke Red in Europe. So that just goes to show that, if the value the procurement can bring, I mean, we streamlined and rationalized that portfolio, but when there's no control from procurement, that's the kind of thing that happens. And
Right.
so you get this one Coke Red that turns into 23. And you're talking about tiny, tiny differences
Right.
of color that
To
wouldn't
me.
be perceptible to a regular consumer.
Right.
They're absolutely meaningless. So,
Yeah.
the business was adding in cost and complexity
Right.
with no consumer benefit. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that really, really got to me. And then I started getting into CapEx. Now, CapEx is something I'm really quite passionate about, bizarrely. And I do a course on that as well.
Right.
Because CapEx procurement is we spend millions. The businesses spend millions on this stuff. But often it's led purely by the technical team function, whether that's production or engineering, manufacturing, whatever you call it. And in doing so, and not having a joined up approach with procurement, what happens is that, okay, the machine is optimized technically,
Right.
But there's so much commercial value, whether that's, price or total cost of ownership or
Hmm.
risk that's not addressed because those guys and girls in the technical function, their focus is on to getting that machine on site and
Right.
producing as soon as possible. But there's so much value to go at if you're joined up from a procurement perspective
Yeah.
with the technical functions, then you can achieve so much success. Now, the way that we're measured in procurement typically is on price reduction. On a capex item, that's next to useless because it doesn't hit the P&L. When you're buying capex, that goes on your balance sheet. So any price reduction you get in capex is typically it's a benefit to cash and it's a slight benefit to your balance sheet. From P&L perspective, there's nothing you can report basically.
Right.
If we think about a capex purchase, as well as the item itself, there are a whole heap of other services that you need to go and support that piece of equipment. So that could be maintenance, it could be service, it could be spare parts, it could be all
Right.
kinds of tech support. It could be end of life stuff. It could be software updates. Okay, so all of those things I've just named there
Hmm.
typically hit the P&L.
Right.
Okay, so that's where I started really attacking. Attacking is a quite an aggressive word. That's where I started looking at,
Focusing.
yeah, focusing.
Yeah.
Focusing is the word to generate P&L benefits. Now, one of the big successes I had was I found out in a negotiation with the supplier that their real interest was to protect the brochure price of their machine.
Hmm.
Okay, they didn't care so much about the spares. They
Right.
didn't care so much about the technical support and the cost of that. So that I identified that they had loads of flexibility on one area, which would actually hit our P&L.
Right.
So by understanding their interests, I could really make P&L savings while helping the supplier win because they protected their brochure price for their machines. And we did some great things there. And then the food business, very aggressive internal environment. Now, my role in this company was I was the interface between procurement and the rest of the business. So I was like
Right.
an account manager.
Yeah.
The role was called head of relationship, right? So it sounds
Right.
like some kind of marriage counselor, okay, but it's not that at
Right.
all. Uh, what they didn't tell me in the interview was the rest of the business absolutely hated procurement.
Right.
Okay, and I was in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went to these meetings with my stakeholders, and I was given an absolute kicking every time,
Right.
and that really got me kind of into that helped me with my interest in persuasion
Right.
and how to get people to even agree to a meeting with you,
Right.
even agree to respond to your emails or return your phone calls and work collaboratively. So
Right.
that took a huge effort, but the culture of the company didn't really suit me, so I wasn't there very long. But had some wins from a relationship point of view. After about 6 months, people started welcoming me into their stakeholder team meetings, and we were able to have a more sensible, balanced discussion. But it took a long time. And then with BAT, so global sourcing manager, I was responsible for the packaging of the cigarettes, right? So I
Hmm.
think we bought at that time 110,000 tons
Wow.
of packaging,
Mhm.
and I've also bought the cigarette papers and the tipping papers. As head of indirect, then I had a team that was responsible for, IT, mobile phones, travel, legal services. It was really interesting. That was my first experience in indirects. And it's a
Mhm.
totally different skill set.
Right.
Totally different skill set. And I really loved that. It was more of an intellectual challenge about how to. Okay, so in procurement, we can identify the value levers we can pull in this category, but we don't own that stuff.
Hmm.
We don't own those budgets.
Right.
And so while we know about the levers, how do you translate that to this that's something that the stakeholder not only understands, but will support and then implement? Okay,
Right.
so that was a real fascinating challenge, and I loved that. Category manager then for energy, which
Mhm.
was fascinating. understanding how the energy market works. I had a really bright person who worked for me, thank goodness, and did some great stuff there, pretty much around hedging and buying forward and those kind of things back in those days. And then again, spent some time as global capman for CapEx. Again, the budgets here in this company was something like 250 million pounds a year or something crazy. So it was
Oh,
enormous. Uh, but then separating the CapEx items from the P&L stuff, that's when it could make a real difference. And also make a difference with the engineers because the engineers are working with these machine suppliers every day.
right.
Okay, so once those assets are in your company, they're going to be there for 15, 20 years. So it was really useful for the first time the engineers could see that if we involve procurement, then the engineers can maintain their relationship with the suppliers, their good, healthy working relationship. They can leave all the difficult conversations, or I can at least lead the difficult conversations. So it protects their relationship. But it worked really well working together with the manufacturing team. It wasn't a them and an us anymore. It was, one voice to the supplier. In R&D, I also had some direct responsibility for buying things like clinical trials. Okay,
Hmm.
which is a really unusual category. Essentially,
Right.
I was buying human blood and urine. Okay,
Right.
that's what it
Right.
basically. So when BAT was testing lower risk products
Right.
like vapor
Hmm.
and like oral nicotine, we would do like a 6 months clinical trial. We'd get something like 2,000 volunteers who'd go to a clinic once a month for 6 to 18 months, depending on the trial, and they would have their blood and their urine tested, among other things. So they'd measure the biological response to cigarettes. Okay,
Right.
so we'd have a group of people smoking, and then we'd have other cohorts of people doing vaping and oral nicotine and stuff, and then measure the physiological response to that. And I found that really, really fascinating.
Hmm.
And that was worth millions as well, huge studies. And that's my career. So some interesting categories, some very, very boring categories, right? But
Right.
always learning from each one.
Right. I think that's one like a master class in procurement. You covered a lot of categories, wide range of categories from capex to indirect to R&D and all that.
Yeah.
The Coke thing was pretty nice. 23 shades. I can only make out of 5 colors, and out of that, white and black are two colors for me. So I could never come up. But that also talks about how procurement can add value to things and all that. So,
Yeah.
lots of good experience there. Thank you again for sharing. Just in case, we are not representing any company here. Martin has worked in many companies, so it is natural that some names might come out, but we are not representing any company as such.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
that's one disclaimer that I had to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Talking about procurement and training,
Yeah.
procurement is the that gets least budget for training. I think marketing gets the least one. We are after marketing even in that way. Uh, anything that you say that, how can we change this?
Wow, that's a really big question. You're absolutely right. So
Right.
anecdotally, I read some Bureau of Labor Statistics report done in the US.
Mhm.
And at that time, whenever it was, basically this report said that people in sales get 10 times more training than people in procurement do. And
Right.
I've always, from a training point of view, I've always struggled with that because let's think, right?
Mhm.
We're responsible for not only we're responsible for protecting profit, not just
Right.
protecting profit, but hopefully trying to grow profit as well. Okay, through good cost management and negotiation. And you think about the value of some of the negotiations that we all do, and they can be enormous. And a tiny, tiny improvement on negotiation result can give a massive ROI. I struggle with, I think some businesses have always viewed training as a cost and they want to minimize that. And of course, training isn't always the answer, Super Tim, right? So training
Right.
will help raise awareness, but it still requires people to take on that training and then follow up with the material they've been exposed to, find out more, and also implement what they've learned. So
Right.
training is not perfect, but
Yeah.
what's the alternative? Okay. So you hear about the model 70, 20, 10. So 70 is learning on the job, 20 is learning from a mentor or a coach or something like that. And then 10% is formal training. Fine as a concept. But that 70% learning on the job, who are these people learning from?
Yeah.
Do the colleagues have the bandwidth to support someone? Do they even have the foundational knowledge themselves? Okay, so that's why I challenge that model. I get it. It's a very cost-effective way of training your people in theory, but in
Right.
practice, I think it misses a trick. Fortunately, there's loads of stuff online that you can find, and you can, if you have the drive, the self-drive, and the willingness to learn, you can always find out stuff online for free, right? So that's great. But why does procurement not invest? No, I think it's because procurement is seen still as a cost. And I think there's not enough
Right.
joining up of dots of, okay, because like a day's training is not expensive compared to the value that we're leaving on the table when people don't know how to do it. So a small improvement in knowing how to do strategic sourcing effectively,
Mhm.
knowing where to look for cost reduction, and then knowing how to prepare for, and conduct a negotiation. The ROI on that stuff is enormous.
Right. Yes.
And some companies get it, and some companies they have a more mindset towards, yeah, we need to train our people because if we want to get the best from them, they need to have the foundational training. Whereas other companies never get it, and that's fine. And when I started out, right, I was thinking, why don't these companies get it? I've emailed these guys, I've spoken to them. Why
Right.
don't they understand? And you just, yeah, I'm comfortable with some companies get it, some companies don't. But I think if you think of ROI terms, then there's a massive ROI on certainly negotiation
Mhm.
and also, the cost reduction of strategic sourcing. So I'm still banging that drum, Super Tim, and some companies might get it, others not, but that's fine.
I think, right. You said it right. I mean, I was trained by my seniors. Luckily, they were very good, but there is
Yeah,
no guarantee to luck in that way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I
And hope
think,
hope hope
yeah,
isn't a good strategy, is it?
right, yes. And it
Yeah.
can never be about us.
Yeah, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no, exactly. Yeah, that's not a
right.
strong partner to have. In terms of how to sell it, so
Mhm.
one thing that I teach in ethical persuasion is one of the principles that Cialdini codified was the principle of scarcity. We
Mhm.
want something more when that something is in short supply or the supply is dwindling.
Right.
But part of scarcity is this concept of loss aversion.
Yeah.
So loads and loads of studies done on this. And if you want to read more, there's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by
Okay.
Daniel Kahneman. Okay. Him and his colleague Amos Tversky did a paper on loss aversion. I think it's called prospect theory. I might be wrong. But
Okay.
basically we value losses twice as much as we
Right.
value gains. Okay.
Yes.
So if we lose $10, okay,
Right.
we really feel that a lot more, twice as much in the
Mhm.
research. We feel that loss twice as much as if compared to if we'd found $10.
Right.
So when we're in procurement, typically we will go to finance or whomever and we say, look, if we change supplier here, we will gain X
Right.
thousand dollars per year. Okay. But more powerful is if we reframe that into a loss frame.
Right.
If we don't change supplier, we will continue to lose
Mhm.
X thousand a year.
Right.
Okay. So now we're thinking about losses and we're more motivated to avoid those losses than we are to pursue a gain.
Right.
So one tip is to reframe those savings. People are going to get used to it at some point, so it won't have so much of an impact. But think about if you can reframe those gains as losses, and psychologically, that's way more powerful. So when it comes to training and trying to convince your finance director or your boss to invest in training, then reframe it as, might be losing 2 or 3% with this negotiation,
Right.
unless we upskill our team. Try that.
All right. So, one more question related to procurement. You are one of the rare negotiation trainers who are into procurement as well.
Yeah.
How much of this is an advantage?
I
And
think being in procurement, and teaching negotiation is a massive advantage because I know what the delegates are going through. Okay,
Hmm.
I know the pressures they're under, and I know their context.
Right.
I know the battles they have internally, and I know what it's like to deal with monopoly suppliers or suppliers who have a stranglehold on the marketplace. So I
Right.
think I think it's a huge advantage, and then I can also think about how I can make their training customized to their individual industry sector, which I
Mhm.
do, and I think that's a big advantage as well.
Right.
But there are lots, there's loads of generic negotiation training out there, which could be fine.
Hmm.
But I think to receive training from someone who's been there and done it themselves, so you know that I'm not just talking about from a PowerPoint deck,
Right.
that I'm just reading a script. No, no, I've been there. I've been in the room. I felt like they have. I
Yeah.
understand their context and their struggles.
I think the biggest struggle is when the stakeholder has already negotiated with the supplier and has already promised that we'll give you the business,
Yeah,
and then they want procurement to just go and negotiate just for the sake of it. I think
yeah,
that's the biggest struggle that I see.
such a comment. Yeah, it's such
Yeah.
a big hurdle. But that
Right.
that then goes back to ethical persuasion.
Right.
So there's three steps in the ethical persuasion, right, along your influence journey. The first step, and most important, is cultivating a positive relationship. Why is it important there? Because if you don't have a strong and positive relationship with that stakeholder, they are always going to be bringing you in late.
Right.
Okay. So that's why it pays to create that relationship. I mean, it takes effort. Okay.
Right.
This is beyond just sending an email. This is thinking about, okay, using the principles of influence, how can I really strengthen that relationship with that stakeholder so that I am brought in at the appropriate time, so
Right.
that they treat me more as the trusted advisor, someone who they are comfortable in talking to and sharing their challenges with. Yeah,
Right.
it's all about the relationship.
Right. One of the things that procurement negotiates is cost, and we get savings, which is the biggest thing that procurement often sells. We do other things as well. I'm not saying that. But how do you see negotiation as an advantage for procurement? Like, why should procurement people get negotiation training?
Oh, why should they get negotiation training? Right, okay. So we're dealing with suppliers
Mhm.
who are commercial entities and they're pursuing their own commercial agenda. Okay.
Right.
They want to try and maximize certain things, whether that's their selling price, whether it's they want to reduce their payment terms, whether they want to expand their business, and so on. So if we don't negotiate, so if we avoid negotiation, okay, and
Mhm.
we just accept what the supplier is proposing, then we are going to be missing out on a massive opportunity to also get what we want in a negotiation.
Right.
So negotiation, okay, because there's two types, as your viewers will know. So there's the distributive negotiation or zero sum negotiation,
Mhm.
where we're both basically haggling over one variable, and that one
Right.
variable is typically price.
Right.
So it's like a tug of war.
Yeah.
Okay, no party wants to give any ground on that. Okay, and sometimes if we have the balance of power, then we're in a stronger position to try to get an improved price. Fine.
Right.
But what if we're not?
Mhm.
What if the supplier is more powerful than us? What if there's only one supplier? Okay, so that's when we brings in the other type of negotiation, which is the integrative negotiation, where you're trying to expand the total value of that negotiation by working collaboratively with the other party.
Right.
So if you've got a supplier who's got a huge power, then they're unlikely to give you a better price just from asking. They might do, okay, they
Mhm.
might do, but maybe unlikely because why would they? If it was
Right.
your business and you're in a really strong position, why would you give the buyer some price savings? Okay. You might want to just to get them to go away for a couple of years, something
Right.
maybe. But when we don't have those options, we need to be thinking about the other values that we can get from negotiation. And if we
Right.
don't know how to negotiate, then we are it's difficult for us to know what values that we can bring in and how to exchange that value with the other party so that the supplier gets what they want, but we get what we want as well.
Right.
So one of the definitions I really like on negotiation is giving the other party what they want on our terms.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we're going into negotiation, so preparation is 80% of your success, okay? And I talk about, I think, 12 steps of prep. And it's
Hmm.
so important, but many of us don't do any prep, okay? Many of us just do, a very, very brief top level. But by not knowing about the preparation steps, by not knowing how to negotiate and exchange value, we're missing out. And we're giving ourselves the best chance of
Hmm.
getting more value for our business. So we're
Right.
failing our business. And I've been guilty of this, Super Tim, as the next person, in the past.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a great negotiator. And it's only really since I've studied the field, since I've left being a practitioner,
Mhm.
and read a heap load of books, devoured loads of papers, have listened to hours and hours and hours of podcasts and taken
Right.
courses. So only now I've realized I was rubbish. Okay, I'd said some things I did well. Building rapport with the other person,
Mm.
great. I was great at that. But in terms of making the most out of that negotiation, getting the most value, no, I was useless.
Right.
I typically bring the variables of price and lead time, maybe payment terms. But you should be preparing 15 variables at least to
Right.
to go into your negotiation. And on my training course, we do a session with the delegates and then brainstorm together how many different variables. Variables are items of value, and
Hmm.
they can either be items of value for us or items of value for the other party.
Right.
And it's that exchanging of value, that trading, that's proper negotiation.
Right.
That's not haggling, like,
Right.
oh, you opened at $10, I'll give you eight. Okay,
Hmm.
8.50. That's haggling. That's
Right.
not real negotiation. So to answer your question, yeah, why they should learn negotiation, you're going to be letting your business down and yourself if you don't know how to negotiate.
Right. And one good thing that I read, where it said, without preparation, negotiation is like wishful thinking, and you might
Absolutely.
not get anything out of it.
No, no. And some people, I mean, one of the fundamental things that we should prep is actually our objective.
Hmm.
Okay,
Right.
what does good look like? What do we
Right.
want to achieve from this negotiation? You should be able to answer the question, tell me, was your negotiation a success? How successful was your negotiation?
Right.
If you can't answer that question, then back to the drawing board. You need to do more preparation on your objectives.
Right. We'll go back to your Cialdini training.
Yeah.
How was it as an individual, and what are the things did you go through?
Right. Okay. So for those, and I guess many people haven't heard of Dr. Robert Cialdini. He is a professor of psychology in Arizona State University. He's 80 years old now. But back in the 70s, when he started researching this stuff, he was fascinated by why people make the decisions they do.
Right.
Okay. So when he started in the 70s, he was already looking at 50 years of scientific research on the topic. But
Yes.
back then, that 50 years of scientific research was all lab-based. So it was rather artificial. So he thought to himself, look, I need to get out into the real world and find out what makes people successful in persuading others. And
Right.
so he went undercover for 3 years. Okay, so
Wow.
he went and joined sales programs, marketing programs, advertising, PR. He also went into military recruitment. He even studied cults. Okay,
Wow.
and then after his 3 years undercover, he took all his findings and looked at what were the things that what were the things that led to success
Mm.
across all those areas he studied. And then he codified 7 principles of persuasion, which
Right.
he wrote in the book you can see behind me there called
Mm.
Influence, the
Right.
Psychology of Persuasion.
Right.
And people in procurement tend to think that persuasion is just for others.
Right.
Persuasion is for sales and marketing. No. In procurement, we are trying to persuade people all the time. We're
Mm.
trying to sell ideas and concepts to our internal stakeholders. We're
Right.
trying to get our colleagues to do something for us. Okay. We're trying to persuade suppliers sometimes to even work with us or
Yes.
to give us the best deal or whatever.
Right.
and it's a leadership skill.
Right.
Okay, so if you're a leader, you need to bring people along the journey with you. And so knowing how to persuade is absolutely essential. So what I learned from Cialdini, so Cialdini is known as the godfather of influence. I mean,
Right.
for many people, no one knows him, but for those that do, they know that he's the best of the best. I learned that persuasion is based on science. So there's about 90 to 100 years of behavioral science on the
Wow.
topic of persuasion, okay?
Right.
Uh, and these seven principles that he codified are the absolute foundation. And because persuasion is based on science, it can be taught. And because it can be taught, it can be learned. So for all the listeners thinking, oh, I'm just not naturally persuasive. Well, there's great news because if you can learn the principles and
Hmm.
understand how they work, how to activate them, how to amplify them, how to use them at the right time, then people can become more persuasive than someone who is a so-called natural persuader. Because people make decisions, right? So when they want to decide to go ahead with you, accept your proposal or whatever, so people tend to make decisions twice. Okay, and this is common to all human beings. Okay, we firstly make a decision in our minds subconsciously based on feelings and emotion.
Right.
Okay. And then secondly, we post-rationalize.
Hmm.
We then think of a reason why our emotional decision was the right way to go.
Right. Yes.
Okay. You think about a big purchase like a house, okay,
Hmm.
or an apartment or whatever. You have a budget in mind. You go and see a place and you say an expensive place could be, and you say, look, it was above my budget, but when I saw it, I just had to have it.
Right.
And that's your emotional side of your decision making, making that decision. And it works across, these principles are universal, all cultures, all languages.
Right.
And it builds on Daniel Kahneman's work in Thinking Fast and Slow. So we've got this system one decision making aspect of our brains. Okay.
Hmm.
It's a framework that he cited. System one is unconscious, right? Get that. It's unconscious. It's always
Right.
running in the background. Okay. It's fast, it's automatic, but it's prone to errors.
Right.
We make shortcuts, right? So, for example, a good shortcut is thinking that something that's more expensive has to be a better quality than
Yes.
something that's lower price. Usually, that shortcut works for us.
Right.
It saves us mental effort
Right.
because we don't like to think, I'm afraid. Okay, I'll come back to that. So that's system one. System two is the rational brain.
Right.
Okay, it's slow, it's deliberative, it weighs up all the pros and cons, but it takes a lot of mental effort. Okay, it takes a lot of mental effort and it takes a lot of time.
Right.
And how much time do we have in our busy lives? Typically, we're rushed, so we can't always make that decision,
Right.
weighing up all the pros and cons, logically looking at the benefits and the cost. No, we don't always have that time. So we default to system one, which is
Right.
this fast automatic subconscious decision making. So I think that's one of the real key points about persuasion and understanding how humans make decision. It's so fast.
Right.
So Daniel Kahneman says that thinking is to humans what swimming is to cats.
Right.
It-
Yes.
It's possible, but they prefer not to do it.
Right. Right.
We don't like to think. I'm sorry. And that's including people in procurement.
Right.
So there are a number of studies where they've looked at people like judges.
Hmm.
You think that judges are pure system two,
Right.
slow, deliberate, rational, weighing up all the pros and cons. No, judges also make decisions with system one. Okay.
Right.
So people in procurement think that they're immune to persuasion. That's not true. It's
Right.
not true. Okay.
Right.
And by understanding persuasion in procurement, we can improve our persuasive capabilities, but also knowing the techniques, we
Hmm.
can also defend against that when it comes to and recognize the techniques that our suppliers are using against us. So it works, it's doubly powerful for us.
Right. And that also brings me to that question that you said it in the intro that you should be always ethical persuasion.
Yeah.
should not be doing it unethical.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about persuasion, and suppose somebody has learned persuasion, where do you draw the line, and how do you
Yeah.
maintain that ethical persuasion?
It's a really important concept
Right.
because it is so tempting.
Hmm.
It is so tempting. Let's think of a procurement context. If you're under a lot of pressure to deliver your targets, whatever those are, it can be tempting to cross the boundaries just to get those targets. From a sales perspective, equally, sellers have sales targets and whatever,
Right.
margins equally can be tempting to cross the line there from a sales point of view. What ethical persuasion is about not crossing that line and is about thinking about the long term. Okay.
Hmm.
Is this person going to be better off from doing business with me in the long term? And there's a 3-point test that I talk about. So if you're using a principle of persuasion, such as scarcity,
Hmm.
if you say to a supplier, look, we're only going to be giving access to 3 suppliers to this program, could be supply chain finance or SRM or whatever it is, and that scarcity will drive the attractiveness of that supplier wanting to be part of it. But if you said that you're only giving 3 places, but actually that's not true, you're giving 10 places or unlimited places. Okay, so that's not true. So that's unethical. So the
Hmm.
first test is what you're saying to the other person. Is it true?
Right.
Would you say the same to a family member or close
Right.
friend? Okay, easy. Yes or no. If it's no, park it. It's unethical. The second test is what you're saying sincere? Are you presenting the information in a sincere way? Are you not withholding
Right.
material facts that had they been known, the other person would have changed their mind and not gone with you, not said yes to you?
Right.
Okay. Are you manipulating the data in some way?
Yeah.
Are you showing, the scale in a manipulated way, for example? Okay, so you're not being sincere then with the other party. If you're not being sincere, fails the ethical test, don't do it. The
Right.
last part of the test is it wise? If the supplier or whomever it was, the other person, if they said yes to you today, would they also say yes to you 6 months from now, next year? Would they want to work with you again? Or would they feel, if they say yes to you today, would they then feel cheated?
Right.
Okay. So we're talking about wise is all about the long term and building sustainable relationships with whomever that is. So would they say yes to you today, but would they also say yes to you in future? A good outcome for both parties.
Right.
So true, sincere, and wise. And if you fail that simple test, if you fail on one of those, that's not ethical persuasion.
Right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Uh, I wanted to talk a little bit more on Cialdini
Yeah.
principles. I researched the net and I could find those 7 principles there.
Yeah.
I'll just read it out.
Yeah.
So the first one is reciprocity. The second one is commitment and consistency. The
Yeah.
third one is social proof.
Yeah.
Then the fourth one is authority, liking, scarcity. And
Yeah.
the last one that was added later on, unity.
The principle. You're
This is
correct. It was added later on. When he did
yes.
first publish the book, there were
Mhm.
only 6. Then he added seventh principle, unity, in 2015. Very
Right.
good. Bravo. I'm going to give you a platinum star for that. Well done.
Right. Thank you for that. If you would like to talk about
Tell you, oh,
Cialdini, I
yeah, I'll
don't
tell you
know.
each one. Right. So there is an order in which those principles should be used if you're starting on your influence journey. So I mentioned it a little earlier on. So if we think about the journey, the influence journey, because when you're influencing something, we should plan it and be strategic about it, right? If we're trying to
Right.
change someone's mind, we need to think about how we're going to do that, how we're going to strategically apply these principles. By the way, we default a lot in procurement to using logic to
Mhm.
persuade others. It's not going to
Right.
work. It's not
Right.
going to work. Back in 384 BC, or Aristotle, 384 BC to
Right.
322 BC. Even in those days, he said that to persuade someone, you need 3 components.
Mhm.
Logos, okay, logic,
Right.
okay, procurement, big tick in the box.
Mhm.
Okay, we love logic.
Yes.
Then there's ethos,
Right.
which is your integrity, your character.
Mhm.
Okay, procurement, pretty good.
Right.
But the last one is pathos.
Pathos.
Okay, and that's the emotional connection with the other person,
Right.
appealing to their emotions.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, everybody, but that's something that typically what I've seen procurement is rubbish at. Okay, we're great on logic, we're great on integrity, typically in our character,
Right.
but we don't use the emotional connection at all.
Hmm.
And you don't change people's minds by defeating them with logic.
Right.
Okay, that's a quote from Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon. Okay,
Yes.
you don't change people's minds by defeating them with logic. You need three of those things that Aristotle said: ethos, pathos, and logos. Okay, so let us talk about our persuasion journey then. Three steps.
Hmm.
First step, which I talked about earlier, is you need to have a relationship with that other person. You need to cultivate a positive relationship.
Right.
Now, to do that, because otherwise you're nothing to that person. Who the heck are you? Why would they listen to you?
Right.
Why would they change their mind if you don't even have a relationship with them? Okay. So the principles you use for cultivating a positive relationship, liking,
Hmm.
reciprocity, and unity. Liking. If people like us, they're more likely to say yes to us. Okay.
Right.
And the takeaway here is find similarities with that other person and talk about similarities.
Right.
Build that sense of liking, that connection. Second principle, reciprocity. People are more likely to give back to you when you have given first.
Right.
And that's the key point. We have to give first if we're going to activate this principle. Now,
Yeah.
it's not giving your stakeholder or supplier a pen. No, you can give things which are intangible gifts,
Hmm.
like that your time, your advice, a listening ear, whatever it is that will help build that sense of reciprocity and that connection because you are giving first. Always give first. The third principle in cultivating a positive relationship is unity.
Yeah.
Unity is all about blurring the boundaries. This is you over here, and this is the other person. It's about blurring the boundaries between yourself and the other person so you become one of the same group.
Right.
So things like if you belong to a sports team, a religious group, a political group, you were born in the same town, you're from the same country, you support the same teams. Those are unifying
Hmm.
features that bring you together as one. You're part of the same group. Again, when you're trying to build that relationship, you point to those things that make you part of the same group.
Right.
Okay, so that was step one in the influence journey, cultivating a positive relationship. Okay, so let's assume then you've cultivated this positive relationship. The next thing is getting that person to remove uncertainty in their mind about whether they should say yes to you. How do we remove uncertainty? Two principles. Firstly, the principle of authority.
Hmm.
So people defer to those they think are an expert on a particular topic. If you go to the dentist or if you have a plumber or electrician come round to your house, you're very likely to agree with their recommendations on the course of action.
Right.
Okay. But the same can be said in procurement. We are experts in our category, our industry sector, and so on. Okay, so we should use that to create in the mind of the other person. Now we know what we're talking about. We're an authority here.
Hmm.
And particularly when it comes to internal stakeholders, I think this is very relevant. So principle of authority, removing uncertainty is using social proof.
Social
Okay.
proof. Yes.
When we are uncertain, we look to the actions of others to decide what we should do.
Right.
So, for example, this is an easy one: is you're shopping online, you see that 1,000 people have bought this item.
Right.
It's rated 4.8 out of 5. It stops us having to think for ourselves. Oh, that looks good enough, so we'll click on that.
Right.
Okay. Similarly with suppliers, you could say, look, let's talk about payment terms. 78% of your competitors, the majority, are already on these payment terms.
Hmm.
Gives a psychological signal to the supplier that, well, if everybody else is doing it, I should too. Okay.
Right.
And then the last step of the journey, say we've removed uncertainty from the mind of the other person. The last step of the journey, number three, is motivating the other person to take action. Okay. You've got the relationship, you've removed uncertainty from their minds. How do you actually get them to go ahead and say yes to you and do what you've asked them?
Hmm.
And we use consistency and commitment in this one. Consistency and commitment, that principle is all about the other person being consistent with what they've already said and done.
Right.
So if your FD has said, yeah, last year, yeah, we should really upskill the team. I think we should upskill the team and invest in training. Okay.
Hmm.
If you remind that person that they've
Right.
made that public and voluntary statement in the past, they are more likely to follow through with that.
Right.
People don't like to be inconsistent with themselves. It's not a good look,
Right.
inconsistency and being flaky. Okay. So that's consistency and commitment. And then the last principle to get people to move is scarcity and loss aversion. If we don't secure this capacity with the supplier the next week, we're going to lose it.
Hmm.
For example,
Right.
okay, it's a big driver of motivation. It's the fear of missing out. Okay,
Yeah.
so there you have it. You got the influence steps, and you
Hmm.
got each principle that we can use along each one of those steps, depending on where we are, where we're starting from in our journey.
Right. Amazing. You covered everything
Good.
stepwise and very, very logically. Again, I always appeal to the logic, like you said, logos. Uh, right. Yes. Ethos. But pathos is something that we'll have to cultivate with time.
You can. You can do it.
Right.
Because persuasion can be taught and learned.
Hmm.
So
Right.
start off
Yes.
with reading the book. Start off with reading the book.
Right. Yes. That's a good start. One of the events where there was a lot of discussion on AI and negotiation. Till now, negotiation is something that we always look as something that is between humans. But they say that, AI might take it over. Maybe not today, maybe down the line or something. What do you think about AI and negotiation?
Yeah, it's a massive topic, isn't it?
Mhm.
I think so. Typically, my clients and what I've seen from the real world is that there's lots of buyers out there who don't even know what negotiation and don't even know how to prepare and execute a negotiation yet.
Right.
So I think it's flawed to jump forward to how to use AI in a negotiation when we
Right.
don't know the fundamentals. Okay, firstly. But that said, yeah, there's a huge opportunity to use AI. I'm not an AI specialist in negotiation, but I know some people who are, and they're great. I think from a preparation point of view, using AI can save you huge time if you know the preparation steps.
Mhm.
No, it can save you huge time. It can create different tradables or variables for you to use.
Mhm.
It could give you ideas for BATNA.
Mhm.
Okay. It could give you ideas what the supplier's BATNA might be. You can research on the supplier's business, whether they're under pressure, they've lost a major customer. So all of that stuff from preparation, AI can be an absolute winner for you.
Right.
Because one of the reasons why people don't prepare for negotiations is because the time it takes, or the
Mhm.
perceived time that it takes, right? So if you can use AI to do that, then that's going to be a massive time saver. And then from actually executing the negotiation itself, there's a famous case, isn't there, where Walmart brought in AI bots to negotiate a lot of tail contracts in their tail spend.
Right.
And suppliers actually like that as well. Those contracts were previously untouched
Mhm.
because they're below the radar for what a procurement team worries about. Really, there's not much value there.
Right.
And so typically it doesn't get touched and negotiated. But what Walmart did with a company called Pactum, so they got the AI bots to negotiate all the tail spend, the terms and conditions of their contracts, and there was value for both parties in that. Now, who knows what negotiation is going to bring us in future? Of course, it's improving all the time. It's becoming smarter. Who
Right.
knows whether it's going to completely replace humans? No idea. From my perspective, I think humans will be part of negotiation for a while to come because, and people might say I'm, a dinosaur for saying this, but I don't think you can replace getting that sense of trust and commitment with AI compared to looking at that other person across the table or even on camera, right?
Right.
And really getting an understanding for how they're feeling about that deal that you're making and that sense of, are they going to follow through with implementing this deal or not? Not sure. The robot says they should, but if you haven't
Right.
seen the reaction of that other person, but who knows where it's going to go, Superton?
Right. Yes.
In planning perspective,
Mm.
absolutely use AI wherever you can.
Right. And just to add one point here, we were not talking about basics of negotiation in this podcast, although we covered the basics of negotiation in another podcast of mine. Most
Yeah.
desirable outcome or least acceptable offer, or your partner and all that.
Yeah.
If anyone has any question on those, they can refer to that, or they can contact you. So that is another thing that I wanted to cover in this podcast. How can people contact you if they want to discuss more on negotiation, or they want to go for training for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn is the best.
Hmm.
Look me up on LinkedIn. Martin John. I think it's Martin John Influence, Negotiation, Persuasion, or something like that. You'll find me, and you can find me on LinkedIn Learning, of course, with my courses. Those are the best. Those are the best places to. I've got a website, martinjohn-training.com,
Hmm.
and it's my company.
Right.
You don't if you hire me, you get me. You don't get some random person who's just
Right.
reading from slides. Okay, so it's just me, and I work with customers who I like, which is great, and
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm always learning. I'm always developing my courses, and people get an energetic, high energy, very interactive, no hiding places
Mhm.
on my training courses. No one's going
Right.
to sleep, even online.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, do get in touch.
Right. And I'll put everything on the link so that anybody
Thank
who
you very
wants to
much.
go there. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yes. And before we end the negotiation topic, is there anything that you would like to add as to how can people become a better negotiator, or
Okay. So
a-
the first thing I think is having the awareness that even if you've done lots and lots of negotiations in the past, okay, it doesn't mean that you know how to negotiate effectively. And trust me, because that was me. Thought I was better than 80% of other negotiations. Nonsense. Okay. There's lots to learn. It's a very, very broad topic.
Mhm.
So the first thing to do, look, if you can find some free stuff online on YouTube or LinkedIn Learning or whatever, go for it. Start learning there. But there's so many books out there that you can also read. But online courses and books are one thing. You've got to practice.
Right.
Okay, that's the thing that's really going to make the difference. Okay, you don't learn to drive a car just by reading a book, for example.
Right.
You have to practice, and start with really small stake stuff. Even if you're negotiating with, when you're going out shopping, buying whatever, or negotiating with family members on small stuff, but just start practicing, and then gain your confidence, then continue to bring in new tools or techniques or enhance what you're already doing, bring those into your work life.
So Martin, I think I'm done with my questions. Thank you so much. It was a very nice learning experience for me. I hope it is a learning experience for everybody that is listening to this. Before we end, is there anything that you would like to add?
I'd like to say thanks to you. It has been my pleasure to talk to you. We've been connected for a long time on LinkedIn, and we might have shared some messages, but we've never had a conversation like we had the other day and today. So thanks to you for having me on. I really like what you're doing in this concept about sharing knowledge of procurement and beyond with all your followers and so on. And I want to wish you tremendous success.
Thank you again. So a lot of good topics today. We talked about a lot about procurement. We talked a lot about negotiation, ethical persuasion, and the entire point of this podcast is always to help people. So I hope that if somebody listens to this, at least they get interested in certain topics and then they start researching. I'm not saying that this 1 hour is good enough for any vast topic like negotiation, let's say.
Correct. Yeah.
But they get interested in it, they start discussing, they contact you, or they go online and read the material and all. I think that would help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my thought on it. Again, thank you, Martin, for doing this.
That's
Um,
my pleasure.
Thank you all for listening. Have a nice day and Happy New
Bye.
Year.
Happy New Year. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel.